Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. When his wife paused and looked at him, John responded, "I understand." John thought that he had been saying, "I understand," quite a lot in recent days, and he was really tired of uttering those words. He wondered how he and Diana, his wife, had even gotten to this point. They had been married for over 22 years and had two wonderful children, both in college. They lived in a beautiful old house that Diana had inherited from her grandmother. Together, they had updated the house, adding a pool and a detached garage. The old house now had an open concept, floor plan, and a beautifully renovated kitchen. He was proud of that house and thought it could compete with anything they had seen on TV. They also had a great beach house in Hatteras, North Carolina. He resisted making any changes to the traditional beach house he had inherited, preferring to keep it just as he remembered it from his childhood. It was the site of so many wonderful family memories. John Simon Thomas was now the senior vice president of Central Logistics and was enjoying the fruits of many years of hard work. Diana Anderson Thomas had also excelled in her career. She was a senior client manager at Richards & Sons, a securities firm where she had worked for the past 20 years. He thought they had the perfect home, almost perfect children, wonderful careers, and a happy marriage, until he often said, "I understand." But he knew deep down that he didn't really understand what was happening to his life. Diana fell silent and looked at him. "You understand what I'm trying to say?" "I understand." He hoped she hadn't noticed the tally he'd made on the sheet of paper in front of him. He glanced at the paper, 32 marks. In the past 2 days, he had said, "I understand," to his wife 32 times. It was time to put an end to these debates. "So, we've finally agreed," Diana said. "I'm going to step outside our marriage just once, to experience this." She stopped when she saw John shaking his head. John looked into Diana's eyes and replied, "I will never cheat on you, and I will never agree to you cheating on me." "I've never cheated on you," Diana exclaimed. John continued, "I'm willing to forgive the deception you've engaged in up to this point, but now that's it." "I've never cheated on you," Diana replied defiantly. "Yes, you have, at least in my eyes, and if you're honest with yourself, you know it too. You've had several one-on-one lunches with him. He's met you multiple times at girls' nights and turned those evenings into actual dates. You've had extensive text conversations with him, especially on weekends." John paused and looked deep into her eyes, causing Diana to lower her head. Now, he's booked a high-end room at the Jefferson Hotel and reserved 2 spots for their Sunday brunch. His intentions are clear. You have a bold new dress hidden deep in your closet. A Victoria's Secret bag filled with new lingerie. I assume it's only for his eyes since you kept it hidden from me. Your intentions are just as clear. John paused, waiting for a response that never came. He continued, "I'm going to make this very simple. I want to ensure we both understand what needs to happen. I'm offering 2 options. This Saturday morning, I'm heading to the beach house. I'll stop for breakfast at Virginia's Diner and then head to the beach. I'd like you to come with me. We can spend the weekend discussing our issues and see if we can save our marriage. It would be nice if you returned the lingerie you bought for him and picked out something for us to enjoy together." John paused, trying to gauge Diana's reaction. Once again, he couldn't read her thoughts, something that had never been an issue until recently. "Your other option is to go ahead with your plans for Saturday. Meet David Summers at the Jefferson Hotel, have a nice romantic dinner at the restaurant, dance at the club, and return to the Jefferson to complete your affair." "Look at me." She slowly raised her head. "You can continue with your plans. You won't need my permission because the moment I leave without you on Saturday morning, our marriage will be over." Diana stared at John in shock. How did he know about their weekend plans? She slowly began to speak. Before she could say a word, John added, "In case you're wondering, I have friends where you work. You have coworkers who care about you. And lastly, David Summers doesn't have any real friends at all." Diana paused as she realized what John had just said to her. Then she tried to go on the offensive. "I have been a faithful wife and partner to you for 22 years. "No, you were a faithful wife for 21 years and 10 months. You've been cheating on me since your first lunch with David Summers." "I never cheated on you," Diana pleaded. "You've already had sex with him?" John began to say. Diana jumped up and interrupted him. "I have never cheated on you." With a sadness that surprised Diana, John continued, "I've seen the betrayal in your eyes. The eyes that were always locked on mine when we made love. The eyes that now close. The face that turns away from my gaze in bed. How many times were you with him in your mind while we were making love? John laughed sadly. We used to fantasize about threesomes with another woman or another man. I guess you've already brought that fantasy to life. For the past few months, our bed has been overcrowded. I won't talk about this anymore. Do you understand? Diana realized that things were not going as she had planned. She tried to regain control. John, we have a wonderful marriage. I value our relationship and your love more than anything in the world. We've raised two amazing children together. We have great careers, and if we stay on course, we can retire early and truly enjoy life in each other. I have been faithful to you and am ready to be by your side as a loving wife for the rest of our days. I'll give you the rest of my life. I just need one day for myself. And one night for him, John quickly replied. Diana lowered her eyes and shook her head, then looked at John. I could have just gone behind your back. I could have lied to you, but I wanted to be open and honest with you. I thought that after all these years, you would understand. John responded just as quickly, I understand, and as for lying and going behind my back, that's exactly what you've been doing for the past few months. You've been going on dates with him under the guise of girls' nights. You've had intimate lunches with him, holding hands and allowing his hands to wander over your body, access to which should only belong to me. And worst of all, you've brought him into our bedroom, replacing me with thoughts of him. You've allowed him to intrude on our time with hundreds of messages, not to mention sexting. Diana, I know everything, and how I found out doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand what I'm saying. Do you understand? Diana just stared at him with eyes that he no longer recognized. He sighed quietly, realizing that she didn't grasp what he was trying to convey. John stood up and left the room. He went to their bedroom, brushed his teeth, and tried to sleep, but he knew it would be difficult to fall asleep that night. Diana sat still for a few minutes. Finally, she moved to the couch, picked up her phone, and called her friend Janice. When Janice answered, Diana said, John knows everything. He knows about David and our plans for this weekend. Janice replied, that doesn't sound good. Please tell me you're going to cancel it. Diana quietly responded, I don't know how I can. I promised David, and he spent so much money on this weekend. Janice quickly replied, you made promises to John before. In case you've forgotten, I haven't. I was your bridesmaid. Summers can cancel everything, and it won't cost him a penny. And in any case, that's no excuse to cheat on John. I'm not cheating on John, Diana repeated once more. You are cheating, Janice replied. When I told you about what George and I did, I tried to make sure you understood that I would never have done it without his permission. Besides, I told you that we chose the man together and made sure it was someone we'd never see again. I told you we did everything the right way, yet we still have issues we're trying to work through. You, on the other hand, have decided to sleep with a coworker and are trying to justify it. Now Janice was pleading, please, forget about this plan. Stop seeing David, get on your knees, and apologize to John. Diana softly responded, but I need this. I really need to experience another man just once more in my life. David is a good guy, and the women at work say he's great in bed. A good guy wouldn't sleep with a married woman, Janice stated. Think about what you're risking just to become another notch on his bedpost. I won't be just another notch on his bedpost. He's attentive to me. Janice wanted to scream into the phone. Don't you understand that makes it even worse? I met David at our girls' night out. He's a nice-looking guy, but he's nowhere near the man John is. You have to see that, right? I understand, Diana whispered. Janice pleaded. Please, think long and hard about your decision. This will affect everyone you love for the rest of their lives. Diana quietly said, I thought you would understand. I thought that, more than anyone else, you would understand why I need to do this. Janice tried to reach her friend one more time. Diana, the problem isn't that I don't understand. The problem isn't that John doesn't understand. The problem isn't that your kids, your parents, or your friends won't understand. The problem is that you don't understand. I'm begging you not to do this. Diana responded in a determined voice. Well, John knows what I've done up to this point, and he hasn't stopped me. He won't like it, but he'll let me do it. He'll understand how important this is to me. And now I need to get some sleep. After finishing the conversation, Janice turned to her husband, George. She didn't understand a word of what I said. I'm so sorry I told her about our experience. George replied, I thought we agreed that would stay strictly between us. Janice looked a bit embarrassed. I needed to talk to someone about the issues we've been having. I never thought it would give her any ideas. George hugged Janice and said, I know, and I'm not angry. I have to admit, I also talked to John about our problems. Janice lowered her head in obvious embarrassment. You told John. I can imagine how he reacted. Did he suggest kicking me to the curb or branding me a cheater? I thought you knew John better. He asked me a series of questions. My answers to those questions made me think about us. After I finished answering, he said to me, "You two got into this together. You made the decision together. It turned out to be a big mistake, but you two did it together, and only the two of you can fix it. As long as we continue to stay together and work on our relationship together, everything will be fine." He made me realize that we were in this together, and we both were trying to fix our problems. That might be the reason we're still married. Janice began to cry, and she quietly said, "That might be the reason we're married, and we might be the reason he gets divorced." George shook his head as he held his wife. Don't blame yourself if they split up. John is right. If they don't work through this together, they won't stand a chance. Diana slipped into bed and realized that John was still awake. He had turned his back to her, and they both moved to opposite edges of the bed. There were only 2 feet between them, but the distance felt like miles. They got up when the alarm went off and went about their morning routines without saying a word to each other. After Diana left for work, John took a moment to relax and reviewed the list he held in his hands. He had taken today and Monday off from work. John went through every room in the house, photographing each room and its contents. He cataloged the contents of each room and marked the items he wanted to keep. He downloaded all their wedding and family photos from the cloud onto a flash drive. He left their wedding album on the coffee table, unable to bring himself to open it. The apartments he had looked at were nice, but he knew he would miss this house. He would keep all the wonderful memories, but he would miss being here. He would miss the woman he couldn't stop loving and the life they had built together in this home. John then went to meet with Sandra Lewis, who had come highly recommended. The settlement she proposed was very simple and straightforward. Diana would get the house and her retirement plan. John would keep the beach house and his retirement plan. He would pay off her car and all the credit cards. Part of their investment accounts would be set aside for college tuition and $10,000 for each child as a charitable fund, and then they would split the remaining funds 50-50. John looked up after reviewing the settlement proposal and simply nodded. Sandra said, "We can file the papers on Wednesday morning." John nodded again, stood up, shook her hand, and left the office. Sandra Lewis realized that her client had said very few words to her since hiring her for the divorce. All their communication had been through email. She sensed sadness and resignation in him. Sometimes she wondered why she chose family law as her specialty. John headed to the bank. He opened a separate account, transferring half of the funds from the old account into his new one. He emailed the form to change his direct deposit to his company's HR department. Later, at home, he would update his payments to go to his new bank account. Then he went to see their investment banker. The banker confirmed that all accounts and transfers would require both of their signatures. John informed him that his attorney, Sandra Lewis, would place a freeze on those accounts the day after Diana was served. John felt uncomfortable seeing the expressions of pity and concern on the faces of his longtime advisors. He realized that they were just the first of many acquaintances who would have the same look when the news became public. The thought of having to tell his children about the divorce nearly made him sick. Diana tried to avoid David Summers as much as possible at work. During lunch, they met at Maria's Cafe, a small restaurant he liked to call their spot. She was quiet and refused to hold his hand. John knew about their every move, and she couldn't shake the feeling she'd had all day that they were being watched. David Summers paid no attention to Diana's mood. "I'm excited about this weekend. Check-in at the hotel is at 3 p.m. Do you think we could meet a little earlier than planned? Maybe we could have some fun in the room before going to dinner?" "I don't think so," was Diana's reserved response. Back at the office, Diana tried to get some work done but kept glancing around. She realized that at least one, if not several, of her colleagues might be acting as spies for John. After a couple of unproductive hours, she decided to call it a day and left the office. As she walked down the hallway, Diana greeted 2 new interns in her department. She stopped and looked back at them, noticing the distinctive Central Logistics logo on the sweatshirt one of them was wearing. John had completed all the tasks on his list. It was 2 p.m., and he realized he hadn't eaten all day, so he decided to grab a bite. When he sat down at a table in Maria's Cafe, the owner came out and greeted him with a hug. John hugged her back and asked, "How's Ben doing?" Maria smiled. "He's doing great. He made the baseball team as a freshman, and he's so excited. You know, James was an excellent training partner for him this winter. Your son made all the difference." Well, James is thrilled that his roommate will be on the team with him, John replied. Maria sat down next to John and said, they were here for lunch again today, but things weren't so great in paradise. Diana seemed very nervous, and of course, Summers didn't pick up on it. He might be clueless, but he's planning to sleep with her this weekend, John responded, sounding dejected. Don't be too quick to give up on her. She must be a special woman for you to have been married for so long. She'll realize her mistake, and I just pray it happens sooner rather than later, Maria said. So, Maryland crab cakes with broccoli? John smiled for the first time that day. That sounds perfect, and maybe a beer for a change. Surprise me with one of your light Alesh. Diana came home early and began to put her backup plan into action. She planned to cook John's favorite dinner and then try to talk to him again. It was important to her that he agreed to her one-time date. If he didn't agree to that, she needed him to at least accept her actions. When the crab cakes were baked, she went upstairs and changed. She wanted to look good for him and then planned to meet with Janice and her other friend Lisa for drinks to discuss the important day on Saturday one last time. She took the clothes and Victoria's Secret bags out of her closet and brought them to her car, carefully placing them in the trunk. She didn't want to embarrass either John or herself by showing them in front of him. John came home at his usual time and was surprised to smell dinner cooking. Diana walked into the living room and handed him a bottle of light beer. Please, take off your jacket and tie and have a seat. Dinner will be on the table in a couple of minutes. John smiled at the sight of the Maryland crab cakes and steamed broccoli she had made for him. He was glad. It was his favorite dish, but for the first time, he realized he would have preferred to eat at Maria's cafe. At that moment, he would rather be anywhere but home. As they ate in silence, Diana decided to try once more to make him understand why she felt she needed to do this. John, I love you, and I pray that you understand why. John interrupted her. I understand. You look very nice today. Are you going somewhere? Yes, I'm going to meet Janice and Lisa for a few drinks later this evening, but I'm trying to tell you that I love you, and I'm hoping you'll… Yes, you're hoping I understand, John said coldly. I really do understand. He stopped eating and pushed away from the table. As he stood up, he said, I've lost my appetite. As he walked away, he added, You look very nice for him. I guess you couldn't wait until tomorrow. When you see David Summers tonight, tell him to drop dead for me. John disappeared into the living room, and the sound of the TV filled the dining room. Diana sat quietly at the table, her head in her hands. For the first time, she seriously reconsidered her actions. After a few minutes, she stood up and cleared the table. Now is not the time to hesitate. She needed to stay true to her feelings. She texted Janice, We can meet earlier? I'm leaving in 5 minutes. John heard the front door open and close. He finished his beer and stared at the TV, realizing he had been sitting there for 20 minutes and had no idea what channel he was watching. He felt a deep sadness pressing on his chest, like an enormous weight making it almost impossible to breathe. John pulled a box from his coat pocket. He tossed 2 pills into his mouth and washed them down with the last of his beer. For the first time in his life, he took a sleeping pill. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep without some help. He also knew he would need all his strength for Saturday morning. Diana was the first to arrive at the bar and reserved a table for 3. While waiting, she noticed the scene in the bar. Men and women were dancing a dance of seduction, but to Diana, it seemed like a dance of desperation and loneliness. Was this her fate? The arrival of her friends interrupted these thoughts. Diana watched as her 2 friends approached the table. She noticed that they seemed tense and braced herself for their confrontation. Lisa sat down and looked at Diana. What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you out of your mind? You're going to cheat on your husband with some piece of trash, a jerk from work? Are you going through menopause? Or did you start taking drugs? Or did you fall and hit your head? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard from anyone, and I used to think you were one of the smartest people I knew. If you go through with this, you must be the dumbest fool I've ever met. Diana simply replied to her friend, And a good evening to you too, Lisa. Yes, I'm doing fine. And how about you? Lisa just stared at her. Diana could see the anger and pain in her eyes. Diana turned to Janice. Your turn. Janice shook her head. You know how I feel about this little adventure of yours. I would say more, but I'm afraid I can't be as polite as Lisa. Diana smiled sadly. You think you could curse better than Lisa? Janice replied without a smile. Well, no one can swear better than Lisa, but she missed the words fool, cheater, adulteress, idiot, and perhaps the worst disappointment of all. But there's one thing I really need to say to you. I think you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life, but I love you and will be here to help you no matter what you do. Lisa just shook her head. Damn. What you're planning to do is so wrong and so stupid, but I'll be here for you too. Just so you know, I'll be saying I told you so over and over again. Diana hugged her friends. Thank you for your love. I know you can't support what I'm doing, but it's wonderful to know that I can count on both of you afterward. You both know that I don't do anything halfway. I've made a commitment, and now I need to see it through to its natural conclusion. Lisa gently pleaded, Diana, there's nothing natural about cheating, and committing to infidelity is the opposite of what commitment truly means. Diana sat quietly for a few minutes, then stood up and said, I need to finish my preparations for tomorrow. I'll bring a bottle of wine. Please stay and have a drink for me. Diana completed her errands and drove up to the dark house. She gathered her thoughts and then sent Janice a long text message. She knew Janice was angry with her, but also knew that her friend would help her. She opened the trunk of her car and realized she couldn't leave her purchases in the car overnight, as they would be too cold to wear in the morning. She hid them in the closet in the downstairs hallway. After that, she slipped into bed next to John and tried to sleep. Sleep didn't come to Diana that night. Finally, at 3 a.m., she got out of bed and went downstairs. She saw the wedding album on the coffee table and thought that if John could look at it, then so could she. After going through 2 pages, she closed the album and began to cry. She had to make him understand. At 5 a.m., she gave up on the idea of sleep and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After her shower, she put on some lingerie from Victoria's Secret and then opened the garment bag to put on the beautiful outfit inside. She pulled out the suitcase she had packed earlier and took it to the car. Then she placed the Victoria's Secret bag next to the suitcase. She went to the kitchen and wrote a short note to John, smirking to herself as she realized she was leaving him a Dear John letter. She placed the note on the coffee maker, turned off the light, and walked to the car, determined to finish what she had started. John woke up and looked at the clock. It was 6:15, and when he turned over, he realized he was alone in bed. The thought crossed his mind that she hadn't waited until tonight. He had pushed her toward David Summers. He imagined her lying in David Summers' bed, and the image struck him to the core. For the first time, he questioned himself. Should he have just allowed her one night to experience another man? She had promised to belong only to him after that one night. Had he lost the love of his life because of his ego and pride? Reflecting on his predicament, John realized that he could never love her again if she went to David Summers. He had lived with her putting their children first because that's what a mother should do, but he could never live with her putting another man above her husband. In 22 years, they had both earned each other's respect and loyalty. She expected nothing less, and he would accept nothing less. He hoped she was still at home, maybe sleeping in one of the other bedrooms. John checked all the bedrooms but found no signs that she had returned home that night. Entering the kitchen, he saw a note on the coffee maker. He opened it and read the short message, "Please understand." That was all she had written. Collapsing back onto one of the kitchen chairs, John began to cry. He had feared this moment, but deep down, he still expected that she would stay, forget this crazy idea, and remain his wife. After making coffee, he went upstairs. He quickly showered and dressed, then stuffed a duffel bag with some clothes and headed back downstairs. John filled his thermos with coffee and walked toward the front door. Taking one last long look at the house that had been his home, he turned off the lights and closed the door. The cold morning air hit his face as he descended the steps. He had forgotten to start the car but thought the cold might help wake him up and perhaps shake him out of the numbness he was feeling. As he walked toward his car, he realized the engine was running. He opened the back door, and when he placed his bag inside, he saw a suitcase and a Victoria's Secret bag on the back seat. In the passenger seat, he saw Diana, asleep in the car. He quietly closed the back door and paused, reaching for the door handle. Tears of joy filled his eyes at the sight of his wife, his love. Now he knew they had a chance. John took a deep breath and opened the car door. As he got into the car, Diana stirred and looked at John. "Good morning," she whispered softly, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning." After a short pause, he asked, "How long have you been here?" Diana looked at the clock and replied, "About 2 hours. I couldn't sleep, and then I got worried that you'd leave without me, so I decided to wait in the car. I filled up the tank and bought us a dozen Krispy Kreme cream-filled donuts for the road." John opened the box of donuts and said, "There are only 7 donuts here." Diana, now fully awake, replied, "A dozen was for the both of us, and I've already eaten my share." Smiling, John grabbed one of the donuts and let it melt in his mouth. This should hold me over until we have breakfast at Virginia's diner. How about their country ham and biscuits with gravy? Diana shook her head. I'm not dressed to go to Virginia's diner. John was puzzled. Diana, Virginia's diner doesn't have a dress code. You can wear anything you want there. Diana smiled. I know you can wear almost anything, but you can't wear almost nothing. With that, she opened her coat to reveal a purple lingerie set. Well, that's almost nothing, John agreed. Is the coat new? Diana replied, yes, I traded the dress for this gorgeous coat. And in case you didn't check the Victoria's Secret bag, I returned the other lingerie and bought these just for you. Diana placed her hand on his chin and lifted his head so he could look into her eyes. This outfit and the body beneath it are for your eyes and your eyes only, for all the days and nights of our lives. After a brief pause, she continued, I'm sorry for the hell I put you through these past few months. You were right about almost everything. There were only two things you were wrong about. Last night, I dressed for you and no one else, and I really did meet with Janice and Lisa. The second thing you were wrong about is that when we were making love, I wasn't thinking about David. David never entered our bedroom. I didn't close my eyes to think of him. I couldn't look you in the eyes because I was so ashamed of what I was planning to do. I'm ashamed to admit that the shame I felt didn't stop me from planning to be with him. She looked at him and quietly said, Now I truly understand. He kissed her. They had a lot to talk about and much work ahead to rebuild their marriage, but his heart leaped with joy when he realized that she finally understood. As they drove past Virginia's diner, John glanced at Diana. She had fallen asleep again shortly after they hit the highway. He recalled everything he had done on Friday. They had a lot to talk about, and he knew that any honest conversation would need to include his own confession. John remembered that evening 7 years ago. He was in San Francisco for a quarterly corporate meeting. At the time, he was the department head, and his venture had brought tremendous success to the company. Foreign companies were buying up their American competitors, but John saw an intriguing opportunity. He advocated for the acquisition of an Italian company with excellent engineers, but serious financial problems. His mentor, the CEO, approved the acquisition, and it turned out to be a great success. The acquisition brought them several teams of experienced engineers. A major plus was the access to the European market that this company provided to the rest of the corporation, along with a strong presence in the Chinese market. The deal ultimately brought in billions of dollars. It became the crowning achievement of the CEO's career and put John on the fast track to an accelerated corporate career. Diane was home in Virginia that evening and the boys were participating in a school orchestra concert. So John celebrated his success with his co-workers, especially Debbie Maris, a beautiful marketing representative from another division. He and Debbie had a long-standing business relationship that included a bit of friendly flirting. He drank just enough to lower his restraint, but not enough to lessen his desire. They danced much closer than a married man should with anyone but his wife. She snuggled against his leg and rubbed herself against him. Placing her panties in his open palm, they headed for her room. In the elevator, they kissed and explored each other. He released her breasts and Debbie dropped her blouse and bra to him just before the elevator doors opened, and they quickly headed to her room. He watched as she unbuttoned her skirt and reached for his hand as she stood naked in the doorway. But John couldn't move. He realized that it was physically impossible for him to enter that room. He knew that his desire had left him. For the first time in several hours, he thought about his wife and the wonderful family he had at home. He looked at the beautiful Debbie Maris and couldn't think of a single reason to walk into that room. He stepped back 2 paces and then ran, literally ran, back to the elevator. He went to his room and took a shower, wanting to wash away the scent of Debbie. It was 1 a.m. at their home in Richmond, but he called Diana. He needed to hear her voice. After a few rings, she sleepily answered the phone. John assured Diana that he was okay and that nothing bad had happened, and then he shared the good news. He told her about the success of his venture and the promotion with a huge salary increase. He cried as she excitedly told him how proud she was of him and how she always knew he would succeed. She told him how much she loved him. Through his tears, he realized that he had almost shared one of the greatest moments of his life with the wrong woman. Diana's opinion and happiness were all that mattered to him. As John drove to the beach, he knew he had to tell her. He had to make her understand why he truly understood her feelings. He had been in her place, and that's why he could listen to her and honestly say, I understand. Once Diana was fully back with her family emotionally, David Summers no longer held any interest for either her or John. David Summers sat alone in Fred Davis's office at Richards & Sons. Fred was the vice president of human resources, and David had been sent to his office as soon as he arrived that Monday morning. He didn't understand why he was there. Sure, he had missed a couple of deadlines recently while pursuing Diana, but he felt confident he could quickly catch up. The meeting disrupted his plans for the morning. He needed to talk to Diana about what had happened over the weekend. Not only had she set him up, but she had also sent two of her friends, Janice and Lisa, to tell him about it. David remembered being terrified of that woman, Lisa. His father had served 25 years in the Navy, but he was nothing compared to how this woman could curse. She had humiliated him right there in the lobby of the Jefferson Hotel. He recalled that even the hotel security seemed too scared to intervene. As he turned to head back to his seat, he froze when he saw the photograph on Fred Davis's desk. It was a family portrait of Fred, his 3 sons, and his smiling wife. Now he knew the last name of the woman who had so thoroughly berated him, Lisa Davis. Now he understood why he was here. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.